Hi guys, it's me again. This video is going to be it might be a little boring for some, but I really wanted to speak a little bit on this topic because I feel like it's not being spoke enough about, and it's something that I've kind of been thinking about. So with the new movie or documentary that's being played in some states. It's the one about Mr. Rogers. It's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? The reason that I kind of wanted to talk about this is I wanted to speak about like children's educational TV, and I just kind of wanted to give a little backstory to my experience with educational television as a child, and I want to talk a little bit about Mr. Rogers and his program and all that stuff in this one video. So I'm actually going to make this like a Mental Health Monday video because children's education, I feel like that's linked with mental health, and I feel like for sure Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was linked with mental health as well. So for all of you that aren't super familiar with what I'm even talking about, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a show that was conducted, I think it might have even been produced, as far as I know, by a one singular man, which is Fred Rogers. You can Google a little bit more about him if you want to. I know some facts, but I don't know a lot. But what I do know is that the show used to come on a channel called PBS, or here in Kentucky we have a channel, it's PBS and KET, which is Kentucky Television, I think is what it stands for. PBS is public, what is it called? It's like public broadcasting, I think is what it's, something like that. But basically what PBS was back when I was younger, which when I mean I was younger, I mean like 3 to like 6 or 7, which was the time frame that I was watching these shows. It used to be a channel where there was a lot of like educational television on it and varieties of stuff like that for the children, which it's still like that. There are plenty enough educational TV, but they don't play enough of like Mr. Rogers and shows like Reading Rainbow and stuff like that. They still play Sesame Street, that's still on there, but I think some of these shows could be brought back to life. Maybe even like they did with Daniel Tiger, which is connected to Mr. Rogers, for those that don't know. So I think if someone were to ask me why that I think educational television is important for kids, I think it's important for their development, and it definitely had an effect on my development as a child, because I remember watching, like I said, I'm focusing mostly on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to kind of demonstrate this. So I remember watching that at a fairly young age, 3 and 4 years old. I know for sure I was watching that. I used to watch it with my family and like my grandmother, and she would always supply us kids that would be watching it with paper, pencils, crayons, stuff to make the things that he would be making, because sometimes he would like draw things out, write, read, all kinds of stuff that's good for a child's development. So she would provide us with crayons and a piece of paper to draw pretty much whatever we wanted that he was drawing that day. And for me, I feel like that developed my love of art and creativity from a super young age without me even being aware of it. Because I always loved to do stuff like that, whether it was drawing, cutting out construction paper, pasting stuff on stuff. I was always making stuff, and I'm still making stuff. Might be a little different now, but I'm still making things. And I remember for sure watching that, but I also remember other educational shows similar to Mr. Rogers, but I think I've got more of an emotional connection to his show specifically. But I think that, as I mentioned, it helped me develop an artistic, love, and it also helped me with an emotional love that I didn't realize that this show was doing. It connected me and my grandmother, so 2 generations of people, and it also taught me a lot about things that I really didn't, think about at the time until I went back and watched some of the stuff as an adult. And it, taught me about emotions and difficult things. He spoke of things in a way that a child could grasp. So I think for sure we need more TV shows similar to that in some capacity. We have a lot of shows now, I feel like in the present time, that talk about like social issues with kids, but I think maybe it could be handled just a teeny tiny bit different, and maybe spoke to on a more softer, kinder level that he was doing for the time. And for sure we need stuff like that now. For sure. I mean, we did during the time that it come out, which was in the 60s, and it lasted all the way up until, I think they said 2001 or 2, something like that. But it lasted all the way up until that point. So from that time, all of these children were growing up watching this man. And it's kind of crazy to think that one man could have an impact on so many kids with just an idea and a message. Pretty much that love was the one thing that kept us as a society together. And I find it interesting because also he was he studied child psychology, I believe, which is why I'm making this a Mental Health Monday issue. Basically, just, why is children's programs needed? I think it develops children into the, adults that we're hoping they'll be. By them watching these shows, they may learn something, or, we may learn something as adults. Teaching our kids, we may learn through the shows. Or it might be my situation where I grew a bit closer to my grandmother and my uncle through watching this and many other shows as well. They would introduce me to a show, I would introduce them to a show. So it kind of worked out like that. And it's sort of fond memories and things like that that I think we need to be making with children now, especially considering the way that the world's going. It's so fast paced with so much technology. We need some shows like this that take it back and slow it down for children. I think we ask a whole lot for younger kids that they can't always do, and they need shows like this to relax sometimes. But Do I think that we need to bring back things like Reading Rainbow and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? The answer to that is a simple yes. I know for sure here that they play Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but it's only on one day a week, which is Saturday, and it's usually at 6 o'clock in the morning. But even with that, I think if any child could see this, a small glimpse of it, and think a little bit differently, or become enticed, with the idea of, being compassionate or something like that, then I feel like his legacy keeps living on. I think that we need to stop sometimes and think about the lessons that Mr. Rogers tried to teach us, all of us as small children. It's funny that we'll remember that stuff when we become an adult. We start to think about stuff like that. I just decided this year that I would sort of look a little bit more into Mr. Rogers, as I have been dealing with a multitude of issues and things in my own life. It's been really interesting to go back and to look at the man as a person. And I think that educational TV is what it is, educational, and we need stuff like that to help. I know I've said that 2,000 times in this video, but it's true. It really is true. It shaped me as a person. One man and one man's idea shaped me, and I'm sure millions of other people as a person. So what I'm gonna say is this: I've not seen the documentary yet of Won't You Be My Neighbor. I've not seen it yet, but I'm hoping that I'll get to see it sometime in the next couple of months or something along the lines of that. But if I don't get to, I'll still remember the episodes and stuff that I had watched of Mr. Rogers. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to send each and every one of you that's watching this with this one singular thing. If you get the chance and you've never watched an episode of Mr. Rogers, or I would recommend Reading Rainbow too. Both of them are really well, but especially Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. If you've never watched it, take the time and sit down and watch it. If you have kids, watch it with your children, and just kind of take in the subtle things that this man has to say and the way that he's saying it. It's a really interesting read, or watch. It's interesting to watch him, and I think we can all take some lessons that he tried to teach us, and we can all try to be a good neighbor. And I think with that, I'm gonna go. And like I said, I'm going to make this a Mental Health Monday video because he was very much about children's mental health, and I am as well. I think it's important to help them to understand their emotions and feelings. So if you want me to talk a little bit more about something else to do with mental health, and you maybe want to hear my opinion on something or want me to look something up, feel free to comment that down below. Or if you want to, you can personally message me on any of my social medias. Tell me, hey, would you mind to talk about whatever for this Mental Health Monday thing? And I will try to record a video on it, or at the very least do some research on it. Maybe supply you guys with some information about stuff. That's kind of what I want to do here. I want to help people learn a little bit more about like mental health, psychology, why this stuff is important, and do something like that, and do a little bit more of that rather. You got any suggestions for videos? Once again, like I said, comment them down below. Feel free to do that, or comment anything you want. Please do be kind, and make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss anything new that I have coming up. Also, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to talk to me one-on-one, social media accounts down below in the description. Just click one, message me. That's all you have to do. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this in some capacity, and maybe you'll go do some research on Mr. Rogers. And with that, I'm gonna leave you with this. Thanks for watching, neighbor.